At the center of the Imperium stands the Emperor, worshipped as a god. Yet the empire that rules in his name cannot state exactly how many worlds it controls. It is commonly called an empire of 1,000,000 worlds, but that figure is not a fixed census. The Imperium's territory is not one continuous block of space. Its worlds are scattered across the galaxy, and entire departments of the Administratum are devoted to cataloging planets that are discovered, conquered, colonized, isolated, or lost. That contradiction explains the imperial hierarchy. The Imperium is not one clean chain of command running from a throne on Terra to every citizen on every world. It is a vast collection of authorities, armed institutions, religious bodies, administrators, governors, fleets, courts, and specialist orders. Some belong directly to the central government, some operate beside it, some are formally independent while still acting in the Emperor's name, and at the heart of this structure is Terra itself, not merely a planet, but the symbolic and administrative center from which humanity's largest political entity attempts to govern a galaxy. The Emperor is the highest point in the hierarchy. Imperial society is bound together by worship of him as a god. This is not simply a private belief or a regional custom. Across worlds with radically different cultures and political systems, faith in the Emperor is one of the values rigidly maintained by the central imperial order. The Emperor gives the Imperium its ultimate legitimacy. Armies fight in his name. Tithes are demanded in his name. Judges, officials, priests, and rulers all claim authority through loyalty to him. But the practical work of governing cannot be performed by a single figure across worlds that may lie hundreds or thousands of light years from their nearest neighbor. The gap between sacred authority and practical administration is filled by a colossal system known as the Adeptus Terra. The Adeptus Terra is also called the Priesthood of Earth. It is the central organization of the Imperium, the umbrella beneath which most official imperial departments and organizations belong. But it is not a single unified office in the ordinary sense. Its divisions function largely autonomously. Each has its own role, priorities, records, personnel, and traditions. Together, they form the machinery that turns imperial doctrine into demands, movements, rulings, communications, and control. This is the first essential point about the hierarchy. Terra sits at the center, but it does not govern through a simple daily command system. It governs by assigning immense responsibilities to specialized institutions, then relying on those institutions to operate across distances too great for ordinary administration. In theory, this creates order. In practice, it produces overlapping authority. A world may answer to its governor, pay the imperial tithe, receive military demands, fear imperial judges and investigators, and depend on distant fleets, navigators, and communication systems to remain connected to the rest of humanity. Within the Adeptus Terra, the most powerful individual is the Master of the Administratum. In theory, that is the greatest office within the Adeptus Terra. In practice, it may be the most powerful office in the entire Imperium. The distinction matters. The Emperor is the sacred foundation of the Imperium, but the Master of the Administratum stands at the center of the administrative system that turns imperial policy into action. The Administratum must deal with administration on an unimaginable scale. The Imperium's number of worlds has never been precisely determined. A realm this vast cannot be measured like a normal country with fixed borders. It is measured by the planetary systems under its control, and even that record is constantly changing. A newly settled, conquered, or colonized world may enter imperial records. An older world may be isolated, overrun, destroyed, or simply lost to the wider system. The work never ends. The Administratum therefore represents something larger than paperwork. It represents the Imperium's attempt to know what it controls, what it can demand, and what resources can be drawn from its worlds. That demand is embodied in the imperial tithe. Subject planets are required to pay it. The precise form may vary according to the needs and character of the world, but the principle is rigid. A planet under imperial authority owes something to the Imperium. Resources, labor, soldiers, supplies, and strategic support can all become part of the larger system of survival. The tithe is one reason local independence has limits. Imperial worlds can differ enormously in culture and regime, but they do not exist outside the larger order. A planetary ruler may control everyday life on a world, but that ruler's position exists within a framework of obligation. The Emperor must be worshipped, the tithe must be paid, The world must remain part of humanity's larger political and military structure. Below the central institutions, planetary governors and lords form one of the most important layers in the hierarchy. They are among the authorities closest to ordinary imperial populations. On countless worlds, they are the face of government, the rulers who organize local life, enforce imperial requirements, and keep the planet functioning well enough to meet its obligations. This makes a governor both powerful and constrained. A governor may hold immense authority over a single world, but cannot simply treat that world as personal property. Imperial institutions exist above and around local rule. The center expects compliance. Agencies can enforce, judge, requisition, or intervene. The governor rules locally, but rules within the emperor's domain. The relationship between Terra and a governor is not one of perfect supervision. The distances involved make that impossible. Instead, the Imperium relies on institutions that carry authority outward. Some record, some assess, some judge, some fight, some move people and material, some preserve navigation and communication. The hierarchy is less like a narrow ladder and more like a web whose central strands lead back to Terra. The Departamento Exacta is formally placed within the Adeptus Terra. Its presence in the hierarchy reflects the importance of assessment and extraction. An empire spread across untold systems must turn distant worlds into usable information and usable resources. The Administratum records the Imperium, while departments such as the Exacta help make imperial obligations real. Then comes the military burden. The Imperium does not face a single enemy on a single frontier. Its forces fight across many war zones. Around Nockmund, Imperial forces struggle to hold the strategically vital Nockmund Gauntlet against orcs, chaos, gene-stealer cults, and Eldar. On Armageddon, Imperial forces fight both orcs and demons, while conflict continues through repeated invasions. In the Pariah Nexus, the Imperium moves against Necron designs. In the Fourth Tyrannic War, it attempts to stem a major offensive by Hive Fleet Leviathan. No single local government can handle threats like these alone. That is why the hierarchy includes the Departamento Munitorum, the Imperial Guard, the Imperial Fleet, and the Imperial Navy. These are different parts of the same imperial necessity, gathering force, moving it through space, supporting it, and directing it toward conflicts far beyond the concerns of any one planet. The Departamento Munitorum sits within the central system as an organization tied to military administration and support. Armies do not exist only as warriors on a battlefield. They need recruitment, transport, equipment, records, provisions, medical support, and replacement personnel. In an empire where worlds are separated by enormous distances, sustaining a war can be as important as fighting it. The Imperial Guard is formally part of this wider Terra structure. It is the ground force that carries the weight of war across Imperial worlds. Its place in the hierarchy shows how military action is connected to administration. Soldiers are not separate from the Tithe, the records, the logistics offices, and the planetary systems that provide them. Imperial warfare is the consequence of an empire constantly converting the strength of its worlds into survival. The Imperial Navy and Imperial Fleet extend that effort into space. The formal structure distinguishes the Imperial Navy from the broader Imperial Fleet, and also lists merchant and civil fleets. This reveals another important truth. Imperial control depends on more than warships. A galactic state must also move goods, citizens, officials, and supplies. The armed fleet protects and projects power, but the wider network of ships keeps the Imperium connected. That connection is fragile. An Imperial planet may be separated from its nearest neighbor by hundreds or thousands of light years. The Imperium is not a solid territory in which every world borders the next. It is scattered across the galaxy. A world can be loyal to Terra in principle, while remaining physically remote from help, trade, or reinforcement. This is why the novice nobilite has a place within the central hierarchy. The Imperium scale turns travel into a governing problem. A fleet cannot simply be assumed to arrive where it is needed. Trade, war, expansion, communication, and administration all depend on the ability to cross the distances between scattered systems. The Astra Cartographica also appears within the Adeptus Terra. In a realm whose borders cannot be drawn as a continuous line, charting space is not a background task. It is part of power. To identify systems, routes, and holdings is to make them governable. The Imperium's claim over a world is never only military or religious. It must also be recorded, located, reached, and incorporated into the wider network. The Departamento Colonia shows that the hierarchy is not concerned only with holding existing worlds. The Imperium is always changing. New planets are discovered, conquered, or colonized. The center must therefore manage expansion as well as survival. Every new settlement may become another source of resources, troops, loyalty, and strategic value. It may also become another administrative burden and another vulnerable point in a realm that already struggles to account for itself. The Officio Logisticarum, Officio Medicae, Officio Agricultae, and Logis Strategos reveal how practical imperial power can be. Logistics, medicine, agriculture, and strategic planning are not glamorous parts of a hierarchy, but they determine whether armies move, populations eat, wounds are treated, and campaigns continue. For an ordinary citizen, these institutions may seem distant, yet their decisions can shape daily life more directly than grand imperial declarations. A demand for supplies changes work. A military levy changes families. A shift in agricultural needs changes what a world produces. A strategic decision made far away can turn a quiet planet into a staging ground for war. The Adeptus Terra is feared for precisely this reason. Membership in one of its agencies can offer privileges beyond those available to ordinary citizens, making even low-level positions desirable. At the same time, the imperial population views the priesthood of Earth with fear and suspicion. Its attention can mean endless war, harsh bureaucracy, or liquidation through the actions of zealous officials. That fear is not an accident at the edge of the system. It is built into the hierarchy. Imperial authority is designed to preserve a human empire surrounded by dangers, but preservation is often enforced through coercion. Loyalty is expected, compliance is measured. Failure can bring consequences from institutions much larger than any local community. The Adeptus Arbites represents one of the clearest expressions of central law. It is formally part of the Adeptus Terra and is named among the agencies that enforce imperial values and policies. Its role in the hierarchy is not simply to settle ordinary disputes. It stands for the fact that the Imperium has laws and requirements that reach beyond local custom. A planetary ruler can govern locally, but central authority still has standards. Worship of the Emperor is enforced. Payment of the Tithe is enforced. When the Imperium decides that a world, a ruler, or a population has crossed a line, the Arbites are part of the machinery capable of making that decision matter. The ecclesiarchy operates differently. It is not formally part of the Adeptus Terra, even though it is one of the most important institutions in the Imperium. This separation is significant. The ecclesiarchy does not need to be buried inside the central bureaucracy to exercise immense influence. Its authority comes from faith in the Emperor, and that faith is one of the basic conditions holding imperial society together. The ecclesiarchy helps enforce the worship of the Emperor as a god. Across worlds with differing cultures, this produces a shared imperial identity. A citizen may never see Terra. They may know little of a distant war zone, but the religious structure links everyday life to the central claim that humanity is united under the Emperor. Faith also supplies the hierarchy with legitimacy. A tithe demand is not presented merely as a fiscal requirement. Military service is not just a local obligation. In the imperial order, such demands exist within a sacred system. The result is that religious authority and administrative authority reinforce each other without being the same institution. The Adeptus Mechanicus is another major body outside the formal Adeptus Terra structure. It possesses its own language, lingua technis. This tells us that the Imperium's hierarchy includes powerful partners that cannot be reduced to ordinary departments. The Adeptus Mechanicus occupies a distinct position because the Imperium requires technical capacity on a galactic scale. Fleets, industry, communications, weapons, transport, and production all depend on technical knowledge. Yet the Mechanicus remains structurally separate from the core bureaucracy. The Imperium is therefore not a perfectly centralized state. It is an alliance of authorities gathered around the Emperor's rule. The Inquisition is also not formally part of the Adeptus Terra. Its independence is central to its place in the hierarchy. The Inquisition is feared, and it is named alongside the ecclesiarchy and arbites as an enforcer of the imperial order. It also exists in a galaxy where information can be classified entirely, as shown by worlds and events whose details are sealed by inquisitorial authority. The Inquisition complicates the usual picture of government. Not every imperial decision travels through normal administrative channels. Some matters are hidden. Some worlds are classified. Some threats are treated as dangers so severe that ordinary openness, local authority, or even normal bureaucracy gives way to investigation and secrecy. This is especially relevant in an Imperium that persecutes not only aliens, but also mutants and psychers. The Imperium is militantly xenophobic, and may annihilate entire non-human species. It treats its hostile policies toward aliens, mutants, and psychers as necessary measures for human survival in a galaxy filled with violent alien powers and dark gods. Certain abhuman groups, including ogrins and ratlings, are tolerated, but that tolerance is selective. The hierarchy, therefore, does not only organize territory and resources, it categorizes people. It defines loyalty, acceptable humanity, forbidden difference, and threats that must be contained or destroyed. This is where the spiritual, legal, military, and secretive branches of the Imperium meet. The ecclesiarchy supplies orthodoxy, the arbites enforce imperial law, the Inquisition operates with fearsome authority, local rulers govern under the shadow of all three. Psychers hold a particularly revealing place in the structure. They are persecuted within imperial society, yet the central hierarchy also includes the Adeptus Astra Telepathica and the Adeptus Astronomica. These are not minor names on an organizational list. Their existence shows that the Imperium must manage powers it fears, because its survival depends on systems that ordinary administration cannot replace. The Sisters of Silence are listed within the Adeptus Terra as well. Their placement alongside the Adeptus Astra Telepathica, the Adeptus Astronomica, and the Adeptus Custodes brings several specialized institutions close to the center of imperial power. These organizations do not define daily government on every world, but their connection to Terra reflects their importance to the survival and protection of the wider Imperium. The Adeptus Custodes occupies a special place in this central framework. It is formally listed within the Adeptus Terra, but its name carries a different weight from agencies concerned with records, tithes, agriculture, or trade. The Custodes belong to the hierarchy closest to the heart of imperial authority. Their inclusion reminds us that the Imperium's center is not protected by bureaucracy alone. The Custodes should not be treated as just another department in a neat organizational chart. Their place within the formal hierarchy marks their connection to Terra and to the Emperor's realm at its most vital point. Around them stand other specialized bodies, whose roles support the wider Imperium. Far beyond Terra, fleets, armies, governors, and officials struggle to preserve the connections that make that center meaningful. The same broader pattern applies to the Adeptus Astartes, more commonly known as the Space Marines. They appear in the organizational picture, yet are only loosely affiliated with the Adeptus Terra. This is another reason the Imperium cannot be understood as a neat administrative pyramid. The Space Marines are connected to the wider Imperium, but are not fully absorbed by its core civil system. That loose affiliation matters during war. The Imperium depends on forces with different chains of authority, different cultures, and different duties. The Guard belongs within the central structure. The Navy and Fleet move power between stars. The Astartes stand near the system, but are not simply another office under the Administratum. The Inquisition and Ecclesiarchy remain formally outside the Adeptus Terra. The Mechanicus does the same. Unity is maintained not through complete uniformity, but through shared allegiance to the Emperor and the necessity of survival. The Officio Assassinorum is another example of a body whose existence reveals the hierarchy's harder edge. It is listed within the Adeptus Terra, although one account differs on its exact placement under the Administratum. Even imperial organizational structure is not perfectly fixed in every account. What remains clear is that the Imperium contains specialized institutions intended for extreme needs beyond normal government and ordinary warfare. Other offices broaden the picture further. The Templars Psychologus, Officio Sabbatorum, Estate Imperium, Synopticon, Logos Historica Verita, Officio Communicatus, and Officio Propagandum all appear within the larger Terra structure. Their presence suggests an empire concerned not only with soldiers and supplies, but also with thought, information, communication, history, estates, sabotage, and public messaging. This is what a hierarchy on a galactic scale becomes. It cannot survive through a ruler giving orders to a handful of ministers. It must divide its vast domain into functions. One office records, another assesses, another feeds, another heals, another carries messages, another charts routes, another judges, another sends armies, another determines what information may be known. Each body handles part of a system too large for anyone to see in full. Even language reflects this division. Low Gothic is spoken on most Imperial worlds, usually as a first or second language, though dialects develop over time. High Gothic is used as a formal and ceremonial language by divisions of the Adeptus Terra, the Inquisition, and the Ecclesiarchy. Lingua Technis belongs to the Adeptus Mechanicus. The hierarchy does not merely command through force, it also establishes the languages through which law, faith, technical knowledge, and official authority are expressed. At the bottom of this immense structure are ordinary citizens on individual worlds. They may live under very different regimes. One planet may be heavily industrial, another may be agricultural, another may be shaped by war, isolation, or local tradition. Yet all are expected to recognize the same central truths. The Emperor is divine, the Imperium has claims upon them, and human survival takes precedence over personal freedom or local difference. Their nearest ruler may be a planetary governor. Their most immediate authority may be a local official, priest, judge, or military commander. But behind that figure stand distant institutions on Terra. Behind those institutions stand fleets, records, tithes, investigators, religious demands, and the possibility that a remote world can suddenly become important to a war far away. The Imperium's hierarchy is therefore not best understood as a simple chain from emperor to citizen. It is a layered system of central authority, autonomous departments, allied institutions, local rulers, and specialized agencies. Its strength comes from redundancy and scale. If one world is isolated, others remain. If one war zone burns, other fleets and armies can be redirected. If an authority is too distant to act directly, another may be closer, harsher, or more suited to the task. Its weakness is the same complexity. The Imperium's own records cannot settle the number of worlds it controls. Its planets are separated by vast distances. Its institutions overlap while remaining partly independent. Its government can offer privilege to those inside it and terror to those caught beneath it. It demands unity, yet survives by delegating power to countless bodies that cannot be perfectly controlled. At the summit is the Emperor. Around that sacred center stand Terra, the Adeptus Terra, the Master of the Administratum, the great departments, the separate powers of faith, technology, and investigation, and the military institutions that hold distant systems together. Within that central framework stand the Adeptus Custodes, close to the heart of Imperial authority. At the far end stands the citizen of a world that may never see Terra at all. The hierarchy exists to connect those 2 points, and the fact that it must keep trying is the clearest measure of how vast the Imperium truly is.